Hello, Movie Mavens! Welcome back to the B Movie channel. My name is Bailey, and I put the B in B movies. And today, I am bringing some Freddy Fazbear realness. The movie actually just came out today, for those who don't know. I'm very excited. I think I'm just actually going to watch it on streaming because my local theater doesn't have it for some reason. So I'm really excited to watch it later tonight. I would recommend checking it out. It's in theaters. It's on Peacock. So definitely check it out. Don't know how it's going to be because I haven't watched it yet. So we'll see what happens together. Also, I know I'm missing a top hat. I ordered one. I thought I nailed it. Turns out it was a little bit too big. It'll like sit on my head, but it fully covers up the top of my head. So you couldn't see my top knots. So I made a game day decision. Just pretend I have a top hat. Moving on. So today, let's go ahead and get started. And so on Monday, we talked about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I personally think that Freddy Krueger has some of the most messed up kills out of any horror villain because they're just brutal, man. If you think back to, making somebody's veins into strings and walking them around like a flesh marionette, to taking someone's body and attaching all of their veins and organs to a motorcycle, to, forcing a girl to make out with him and sucking all of the air and everything out of her. It's just wild. And so, don't worry, we talk about it. On Tuesday, we talked about movies, so like Scream 2, Demons 2, just any movie where there's also a horror movie going on within our horror movie. On Wednesday, we talked about My Family Heirloom, which is the 1986 CBS Halloween Lineup on VHS tape, and that's actually going to be our deep dive today because I've talked about it over the years, but I've never broken down exactly what's on it. And so I'm giving y'all an exclusive on what the Family Heirloom VHS actually is. On Thursday, yesterday, we talked about Universal Monsters and how important the Universal Monster movies are. They laid the groundwork for a lot of modern horror, and they just have really interesting roots in queer themes and feminist themes, and I definitely don't understand why people sometimes discount them. Today we talked about Stephen King adaptations. That's our other deep dive today. I am a big Stephen King fan. I read a different Stephen King novel each October, and I break down not only some of my favorites, but the ones I don't like, and how to crack the code in making a good Stephen King adaptation. And then tomorrow, we will talk about my favorite horror documentaries. And I know there are some big ones that I've missed. I've missed the one on It. I've missed the one on the Camp Crystal Lake Memories I haven't finished. And as I always tell y'all, I'm not going to write about something I've not personally watched. That's always been a rule in my writing. I don't write about things that aren't true. I may change a name or like a big identifying characteristic because someone else's story might not be my story to tell, but is needed for context. But everything you read is genuine. But I do go over some recommendations because there are some good things out there like Queer for Fear, Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street. There are just some really good horror documentaries out there. And I think sometimes, I know I personally get caught up in the fantasy part of horror, but it's so interesting to find out what goes on behind the scenes. And those who don't know, if you're like, why is there a piece coming out tomorrow? Today's Friday, Bailey. For all of October, this is the last week, but for all of October, we've been releasing 7 straight days of content. So 7 blog posts and a bite-sized Sunday. So this is the last Saturday. Elliot and I have talked about it. We may revisit it in the future, but for now, it will only be 7 days of content every October. So speaking of 7 days of content, we've only talked about 6. it's time for the final Bite Size Sunday of October. For those not in the loop, Bite Size Sundays are an exclusive review on Instagram. It's just on our Instagram at bmovies channel, same as our YouTube. And Bite Size Sundays are reserved for a piece of content that I either like or don't like, but want to talk about. However, there's just not enough there, or I don't have enough thoughts on it for a full piece. And so those live exclusively on our Instagram, and only on our YouTube channel do we tease what they're going to be. We don't include them in the blog roundup teasers in our Instagram stories. So for October, we've actually created 10 movie recommendations based off of a theme. And so this week, the teaser is, it came from the depths of my mind. And I know this is probably, I know some of you probably hate these, but I think it's fun to tease them like this in a roundabout way or an abstract way. So that's your teaser, is it came from the depths of my mind. So, now that we've gotten the business taken care of, and again, you can find all of these blogs over on bmovies.blog, which is always linked in the description box down below. And on our Instagram as well, where Bite Size Sunday live, we also do daily posts. So we do a daily post for each blog throughout the week, and then a blog roundup on Fridays. So you can find all of that on our Instagram and in the description box below. So, like I said, one of our deep dives today is going to be on my family heirloom. If you're new around here, you may have no idea what you're talking about, or what I take it from the top. You may have no idea what I'm talking about. Sorry, I'm just very excited to talk about this because I've never actually gone through what's on this VHS tape. So if you're new around here, you may be asking, what is this family heirloom? What is this VHS tape that you're talking about? You know, is a girl going to crawl out of my TV and snag me just for listening to you talk about it? And the answer is no. My family heirloom is a VHS recording of the 1986 CBS Halloween Lineup. I watch this puppy annually. I already have a tattoo in the works to represent it. And several of my tattoos that I have currently also stem from this heirloom. Like, I have the witch from Witch's Night Out. I have Garfield and Odie from Garfield's Halloween Adventure. It's why I have Count McNugget. And I'm like trying to show y'all, and boop, there he is. But it's a part of why this sleeve is so based in Halloween nostalgia. And so, for the first time ever, publicly, I've watched it twice with friends. So there are a few of my friends that have actually seen it. But for the first time ever, I'm going to go through this treasure trove of content that's on this VHS tape. And I just really want it to be the focal point of today's video because it means a lot to me. It's good. It just has really good Halloween memories. And it makes me so excited to talk about this. So let's start. We're going to divide it into two parts here because you have the commercials, which are incredible, and then the actual specials. So we're going to start out with the commercials that are obviously dispersed throughout the special because it is seriously just the CBS Halloween lineup as it premiered on broadcast television. So, these glorious 1980s commercials. So first and foremost, it has the McDonald's Scared Silly commercial, which has all of the nuggets as all of the different, in their costumes. They're essentially mimicking the Universal monsters. And this is, again, that's why I have my Count McNugget tattoo. And it's so good to see it IRL. And then speaking of McDonald's, we also have a Boo Bucket commercial. This was the year that they did the 3 different pumpkin faces, aka the McPumpkin, the McGoblin, and the McBoo. I'm also 99% sure that the kid in this commercial is Jason Marsden. He recently, not recently, but this year on Pod Meets World, when they did his interview, he referenced being in a Halloween Boo Bucket commercial. I am 99% sure this is the commercial, so I'm 99% sure that the kid in this commercial, not only is it like this amazing piece of 1986 nostalgia, I'm pretty sure that's Jason Marsden. If you don't know who Jason Marsden is, or you aren't sure who I'm talking about, Jason Marsden, he was the voice of Thackeray Binks in Hocus Pocus. He was the voice of Max in a Goofy movie. He was Eric's best friend briefly on Boy Meets World, and so on and so forth. You would definitely know him if you saw him, and especially if you heard him. So next up, we have the infamous General Mills, Frankenberry, and Count Chocula commercials. I reference these constantly, and people usually have no idea what I'm talking about, but it's the one, so there are two different POVs. There's one from Frankenberry's that highlights Frankenberry, and one from Count Chocula's that highlights Count Chocula. And it has this very specific animation style to it, and I've already talked to Lido, and I think we're probably going to do a Frankenberry tattoo as well, but in this animation style. And it's the commercials that have the "How about a monster for breakfast today?" song. And you either know what I'm talking about, and I just like awakened a core memory in you, or you have no idea. And it's okay if you have no idea, because people rarely have any idea what I'm talking about. I just reference it all the time. But I think I already have Count Chocula, but I think we're going to have to get our boy Frankenberry, because he's our favorite himbo, and I bought the Frankenberry Crocs this year. So I think we're going to have to add, I have a list of tattoos that Lido knows about, and we always say, like, I'll just add it to the list when we come up with a new idea, and I think that I'm going to have to get Frankenberry. And then lastly, this is not a Halloween commercial. I believe it is a cry for help. But we have the Cricket doll. And it has this dumb this dumb jingle to it, and it's like, "Let's be friends, just you and I," and I hate it. And for some reason, I know why, like, I work in marketing. They ran it because kids are watching it, families are watching it. It's right before the holiday season, because for some reason people don't consider Halloween the holiday season, which is stupid. But I know why they did it, but it's on this special like 5 or 6 times. And her eyes are aflame with hellfire. I can't stand her. And it's on there so many times. And I hate it. But I'm so scared, because this VHS is older than I am, to fast forward it, because it is so old. So I don't want to break it, but I just every time I audibly groan. And then the last thing that I want to talk about commercial-wise, it's not a commercial per se, it's a bumper we had a local horror host. I mean, this was 6 years before I was born. But there's a bumper for a local horror host in the DFW area named Dr. Blood. Sadly, I couldn't find a lot about this guy online. And believe me, I tried. For everything, if you don't know me, I am a researcher. I am very thorough. And so I looked everywhere and could not find anything about this guy. But the little bit that I could, the tiniest bit that I could, he was apparently like a big deal in DFW back in the late 80s, early 90s. He even emceed Six Flags' Fright Fest a couple times. And I'll link the YouTube channel that I found in the description box, because there are a few clips from his horror hosting and from emceeing. But outside of these, I just can't find a lot about him, and that's very sad. So if you are if you were Dr. Blood, or you know Dr. Blood, leave a comment, because I would love to know more about him. And so that is going to round out our commercials/bumpers portion of this video. And we're going to get into the meat and potatoes now of what the actual specials on this tape are. So first up, we have Garfield's Halloween Adventure. This is quoted year-round in my family, and surprisingly, it was not initially on my tattoo list, but my sister was like, you have to get Garfield and Odie in their pirate costumes. You have to. because we quote it and it's such a big deal in our family. So I was like, you are right. And so that is why they now live on my arm, which you can kind of see them up here. That's them. And then, so yeah, it's great. And then next up we have It's Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. This is a classic. My sister will hate this, but we are Lucy and Linus, and I am not Lucy. I still think there are parts that still make me laugh out loud in this special, and it's free of any monologues from Linus about the birth of Christ. So we all get spared that. Next up, we have one of the most impressive things on this tape, which is the Halloween that almost wasn't. It's also known as the Night Dracula Saved the World. This bad boy, at least as far as I know, has been out of print for years. And you can occasionally find somebody selling a copy on eBay or another just like online marketplace. And it would cost an arm and a leg. It's triple digits. They're sold for, I think the last one I saw was like $150, $160. But it's so funny. And if you're a fan of Gravity Falls like I am, Dracula is played by Judd Hirsch, who is Alex Hirsch's father, and who he loosely based Grunkle Stan off of. So it's very funny to see that come full circle. And then next up, we have Witch's Night Out. I love this special so much. That's what my witch is from. This is the tattoo that gets recognized the least. Because Witch's Night Out is criminally underrated, and the animation style is so specific. But it's out of all of my tattoos, it gets recognized the least. I think only one person has ever known what it was. But I digress. I love this special. Gilda Radner is the voice of the witch. Catherine O'Hara is one of the antagonists. And I linked the Memory Static episodes around this and The Gift of Winter, which is the other special that this animation troupe did, in our Greylock video, but I'll go ahead and link them down here below as well so that you can listen to the animators and creators themselves talk about it. It's very cool. The last Halloween special we have is the Fat Albert Halloween special. I'm not going to dwell on this for very long because Bill Cosby's a terrible person, and we're just going to leave it at that. This was 86, so it's on the tape, but we're just not going to dwell on it too much. And then finally, we have one of the weirdest things on this tape, which is the Rankin Bass Coneheads animated pilot or special. When I try to find it online, I find mixed things of whether or not it was a pilot or if it was just a special. But anyway, it's animated Coneheads. The tape runs out a little over halfway through. It's basically the Coneheads movie, but animated. Like, there's a little bit of context and, like, right when they first landed. It's just weird. Like, I don't know. And it has, like, it and the Fat Albert special both have audience laughter in them, which is, you know, thinking about cartoons now, it's, like, jarring. But, you know, Scooby-Doo and all of them back in the day also had audience laughter. But it's just weird. It's so weird. And, again, I only have about half of it. But it's there. And so that is the 1986, that is the family heirloom. That is what's on it. It's those specials, a ton of commercials. We go more in depth in the piece about some of the commercials on there. Some of them are really weird to watch. Like the promo for My Sister Sam, it's weird to watch knowing what happened to one of the actresses in it, which we're not going to get into here, but if you don't know what happened to Rebecca Schaefer, it's very tragic and very sad. But yeah, it's a very cool artifact. I'm so happy that I have it. I guard it with my life, and I treat it with the utmost care, and I'm just glad that I can share that with all of you. So, for our next deep dive, let's get into Stephen King adaptations. And I want to start off by saying Pet Sematary Bloodlines really surprised me this year For those who don't know, it was released on October 6th. And I actually really enjoyed it. And I've been noticing this trend with, like, Pet Sematary Bloodlines, The Boogeyman, and some more recent adaptations. I've noticed that instead of just trying to recreate Stephen King, what they've been doing is expanding on the source material. And what I mean is, for example, in The Boogeyman, the movie essentially begins where the story ends. Or like with Pet Sematary Bloodlines, in Pet Sematary, we get a very watered down version from Judd of what happened when he was like a late teenager. Like probably like 18, 19 or so. We get a very watered down version. And I think that this new expansion of the universe is the best way to adapt Stephen King. And you might be saying, but Bailey, hear me out. Stephen King is so good at having you create this mind canon. And it's the same thing with ambiguous horror, which some people find maddening. But your mind will always create something worse than what could be captured on film. And I think that that's why some Stephen King adaptations fail. Is that they just can't encapsulate that fear and that mental imagery that we have with the works of Stephen King. So I think by taking, for example, with Pet Sematary Bloodlines, by taking a little bit of his story and expanding upon it, we haven't had that time to develop a mental image of how it should look. Or with The Boogeyman, okay, this is how the story ends. Now we're going to expand and bring this creature into another story. I think that's the best way to capture Stephen King. So I don't think we should directly adapt his work, expand upon it. It's similar to what Vintage 8 does, that we talked about the other week, where it's all of these characters living within the same universe, let's expand. Or like how the Duffer Brothers have said that they want to do with Stranger Things, where they have other stories in Hawkins, but this storyline is going to be closed. It's the same thing that, we talked about this, but like Chris Strobe did with Icker Falls. And so I think that's the best way to hit Stephen King, is let's adapt and expand upon the source material instead of trying to do a direct adaptation. And I think that I've been on this soapbox long enough, but that's what I think. I think we're finally starting to crack that code of how to put Stephen King in film. So to start off, here's the tea. I'm going to go ahead and we'll start with the negative. I hated Dr. Sleep. I sincerely read Dr. Sleep for my November Stephen King film. For my book, sorry. So I read it weeks before the movie came out. And the movie really bothered me. Because there are some... I feel like I can... At this point, we can talk about spoilers. Because it came out in 2019. But, like, for example... To take away the familial connection between Dan and Abby, I thought was the weirdest choice. I thought killing off characters in the film that weren't in the book was a weird choice. I thought changing the ending was a very weird choice. I just overall, and if memory serves, it has Stephen King's blessing that he enjoyed it. I didn't. I think it's one of those things where they tried so closely to adapt it, but then wound up taking things out that shouldn't have been out and then leaving things in that could have been taken out. I just thought some weird decisions were made. That's just me. Not a big fan. But see, I'm also a big fan of the original Pet Sematary, and I know that some people don't think it's a good adaptation. I love the movie. So, again, this is a whole, like we talked about last week. Just because I hate something doesn't mean it's bad. Just because I love something doesn't make it good. Movies are subjective, and that's unless it's obviously like has something profane or hate speech or something like that in it, like a regular movie. They're subjective, and that's why they're so much fun to talk about and argue about and defend or, refute. Like that's showbiz, baby. That's why we like doing what we do, and that's why I like doing what I do. So I don't like Dr. Sleep. But I think I'm also going to get flagged for some of my other favorite Stephen King adaptations. First of all, Brian De Palma's Carrie. I know that De Palma took it, if you've read Carrie, it's been a minute, but if memory serves, Carrie is written, it's almost like World War Z, where it's with different interviews and things, and I know that De Palma plays it straight, but the payoff's great. I think Carrie is one of, if not the best, Stephen King adaptations. The Shining, I'm not going to say it's the best just because Stephen King and Stanley Kubrick could not stand each other. So, and I mean, Kubrick also, like, what he did to Shelley Duvall was completely and utterly unacceptable and disgusting. And, he did it with a lot of actresses and actors. But, I mean, it's a very well-made movie. But I'm not going to say it's my favorite just because it's different from the book. Which, again, I feel like the film is better because if they had, I know at one point, like, Kubrick wanted to do, like, the hedges that come to life and things, the horticulture comes to life, but I agree, I think that would have been really bad, and so I think that he did cut some things that were good, but he and Stevie did not get along. Christine, it's John Carpenter, the soundtrack's incredible, and it's just fun. It's just a lot of fun to watch Christine. Thinner, before I know that there's some problematic things in Thinner, that is the one thing about Stephen King. Stephen King has written from some vantage points he absolutely should not have, and he has covered some things he absolutely should not have. Fully will admit that. I like Thinner because the premise is so simple, but so effective. It's just, a man does something absolutely terrible and gets cursed. And that's the basis. But it's just so terrifying to think of not having that own... I mean, as a woman living in Texas, what would I know about not having bodily autonomy? But just not having that bodily autonomy. Having no control over what happens to your own body it always gives me the chills. We talked about that a little bit in Cam too, about what if you had success, but you weren't the one getting it. It comes down to me, it comes back around to just not having that control over your own body or your own actions, and that just freaks me out. Another one that I love, that I know some people don't, I love Sometimes They Come Back. I think they, for me, are synonymous with Sci-Fi, when Sci-Fi used to do their horror marathons every Sunday. And almost every time it came on, we would conveniently be ordering pizza. And so it's very much, to me, it's the epitome of a pizza and soda movie, or if you drink, I don't, but if you drink, like a beer and pizza movie. And so I think that it's another fun one. I love all of the iterations of it, meaning the mini-series and chapters 1 and 2. I think that they're extremely well done. I have a softer spot for the mini-series because I grew up watching it, but I absolutely don't mind it's chapter 1 or 2. We talked about this earlier, but the Boogeyman, I think the Boogeyman is wonderful because it has cracked that code of expanding upon the source material. Salem's Lot is not, it's one of my favorite Stephen King books, like top 5, if it's not my favorite. I love Salem's Lot. I think the vampires are so good. And I think it's one of the best. And I'll say that candidly. I think that the adaptation of Salem's Lot is absolutely one of the best. Cujo's fine. I don't, as an animal lover, Cujo's hard for me because I joke all the time that I love dogs more than people. And so Cujo is a bit of a rough one for me, simply because I love animals so much. We talked about this earlier as well. Pet Sematary, I love. It's in my top 5. I watch it all the time. I can't get enough of the song Pet Sematary by the Ramones that plays over the end credits. It's on my Halloween playlist. I listen to it constantly throughout October. And so, yeah, those are my those are just ones that I really enjoy. There are so many to choose from. You know, we didn't even get into The Dead Zone, Sleepwalkers, anything like that. Oh, I did forget one, Needful Things. I do love the movie Needful Things. I love that movie. If you've not seen Needful Things, make it one of your first Stephen King adaptation watches because it's so good. It's just so good. So that's Stephen King. To get on my soapbox one more time, I think we got to expand the universe, man. Some of the adaptations are big stinkers, and I just think that we need to, let's expand the universe. Let's take the source material, use it for context, and let's expand upon it. So, just to recap, definitely not looking at my notes. I definitely have all of our stuff memorized, always, because what kind of YouTuber would I be if I used notes, aka every type of YouTuber, because we're all human beings just trying our best. So on Monday, we talked about Nightmare on Elm Street. Tuesday, movies about movies. Wednesday, my family heirloom, and now you are privy to what's actually on it. Thursday, Universal Monsters. Friday, Stephen King adaptations. And then tomorrow, the piece on my favorite horror docs will come out. And yes, I know I included the gore documentary. I give the disclaimer, I know it's not horror. It's horror adjacent, and it's just a really good documentary. So, work with me. Bite Size Sunday will be up on Sunday. Just to reiterate, it's only available on Instagram. It doesn't live on the blog. And so definitely check that out. It's our last October. But, and I'm sure I can go ahead and announce this because Ellie and I've already talked about it. But we did like doing these curated lists so much that we're actually going to do one of these a month. So now Bite Size Sunday, it'll be 3 posts focused on one piece of content. But we do have some more ideas for curated lists. So like once a month or so, keep your eyes peeled on our Instagram, just at bmovies channel, like our YouTube, because we are going to throw in some more curated lists because we just had a lot of fun doing them. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Lisa_Frankenstein_. Be sure to follow Elliot at reading.with.red. Be sure to, again, follow us on Instagram at bmovies channel. You can read all of the pieces that we talked about today over at bmovies.blog. And all of this is also linked and entered in the description box below. So if you forget, or if you just want to copy and paste over, we've got you covered. I hope that you all have a spooky season. There will be a video next week. There will be 2 videos. Just because it's October, I wanted to do a video on Halloween Day. And then Friday will be November, so it'll be a regular video. But I do want to do a special video on the 31st, which is Tuesday. It's going to be a little bit different than our traditional format. I'm going to talk about why Halloween is important to me. I'm going to actually review the Stephen King novel I'm reading this year, which is Skeleton Crew. So we're going to talk about Skeleton Crew. And we'll talk about the new Project Earth and a couple other fun things. So it probably won't be as long as these videos have been. But I just wanted to get a special video out to y'all because Halloween is my favorite holiday. I know I'm not the only one. And so we just wanted to send y'all off into the rest of the year in spooky style. So thank you so much I'm so excited to see y'all on Tuesday. You'll get to see my actual Halloween costume for this year, and I'm so excited. It actually came in the other day. I'm very excited. It's another one of my bucket list ones. I was Elvira last year, which was a bucket list. This was another bucket list costume, and I can't wait for all of you to see it. So, on that note, all that's left to do is fade to black.